This is the Energy to Thrive podcast, episode number 005, with guest Dr. Shiroko Sokitch. All links and resources you hear in this episode can be found by going to jenniferpowder.com/005.
Welcome to the Energy to Thrive podcast with weight loss and fitness expert Jennifer Powder. Join her each week as she delves into the world of health and what it really takes to create true transformation in your life, both physical and emotional. Through her messages and interviews with special guests, you'll be inspired to live healthier, happier, and hotter lives. Here's your host, a woman who's real, totally transparent, and gets to the heart of the matter, Jennifer Powder.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Energy to Thrive. If you're listening or watching on iTunes, I'm so glad you're here. I'm your host, Jennifer Powder, and I'm so excited to introduce my guest for you today. So, Dr. Shiroko Sokitch, hello. Hi, how are you?
Hi. I'm great. How are you?
Really good. I think we're going to have an absolutely amazing conversation today. And I've been really looking forward to this interview for so many reasons. And just to share with you as you're listening in or tuning in right now, Shiroko is a medical doctor who actually genuinely cares. And I felt that from her the first time we got to meet at a conference a couple of years ago. And really, she's working to help people regain their health and the vitality that they deserve, right? And what's really going to be fascinating is that she blends this awesome Western and Chinese medicine perspective to really help you tune into your body and to figure out what works for you. And I love that. I think it's so cool that you were trained as a general surgeon and worked in the ER for 10 years. My mom recently had a big fall and was at the emergency hospital, was in emergency, and I just was in awe of what was going on in that place. Shiroko, you've done so much. You've had a show, you've been in integrative medicine, you've had your speaker. It's just going to be such a pleasure to get to know you and to learn from you today.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Yay. Well, maybe just share a bit about you so our listeners can get a feel for what brings your passion. Where did you even begin to get awareness that Eastern medicine or Chinese medicine was something you were interested in, and how did you start to create that blend?
It's a long story.
Yes.
So the original reason that I wanted to become a doctor was that when I was 5, my great-grandmother was my very best friend in the world. My parents had split when I was 3, and I never saw my father again as a child.
Wow.
And so I had already had a pretty big loss. And my great-grandmother, we were living with my grandmother, and my great-grandmother was living next door. And so she was that person who took care of me while my mom was busy trying to take care of us. She was working as a single mom, and my grandparents had a job. And so I was with my great-grandmother. Oh. And one day I was visiting her, and she collapsed in front of me, and I couldn't wake her up, and I didn't know what to do. So I went and got my mom and my grandma. It was at nighttime. Oh. And they got an ambulance and they took her to the hospital, and I never got to see her again alive. About a week later, my mom came and told me that she had died and that I would never see her again.
How old were you? How old were you
5.
at that? 5 years old?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And she told me that her heart stopped beating. And so, of course, I'm confused because I'm 5. I don't know anything. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, wait, I got to solve this. I got to fix this. I got to make her come back. What's going to make her come back? So I started trying to imagine some way to make her heart start beating again. And in that moment is when I decided I was going to be a doctor.
Wow. That's a very powerful story.
Yeah. I didn't know anything else, but I knew that I wanted to solve that problem. When I was in pain, and I knew that she must have been in pain, so I wanted to fix that. And I think it woke something up in me, and it's like this is in hindsight, but I feel like there's something in me at that time that said I'm never giving up. And so then I went to medical school, and in medical school, the first time I got to save a life was in the emergency room, actually with an operation where a patient came in who had a gunshot wound, and he was dying right before us. And so I got to go to the operating room with the surgeons and help save his life. And it was so thrilling. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be a surgeon.
Yeah.
And so, one thing led to another, and I went into surgery residency. And in surgery residency, then I started having experiences where I began to see that saving a life wasn't all there was to it. Like you could take someone from death's door, but then what?
Yeah.
And then I began to have my own emotional pain because I had a difficult childhood and I had some physical issues that probably started in childhood. And so there's all this stuff that kind of came together. There's my personal life, my emotional life, and my work as a healer. And I was like, this isn't right. It's not working for me. I can't help people the way that I want to, and I want to do something different, but I didn't know what.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I had taken a month off from my residency. And during that month, I had a dream, and it was like, if you stay in surgery, you will die. And I was like, whoa.
Oh my, so I got goosebumps, everybody. Like head to toe goosebumps here.
Yeah.
Holy.
So I was like, okay, well, I don't know what to do, but I'm not going to continue in my residency. So right around that time, somebody gave me a book called The Web That Has No Weaver. And it was about Chinese medicine. And it was this amazing book. Chinese medicine is incredible. And when I read the book, like the first 2 chapters, I fell in love with the idea of Chinese medicine. Like this was the thing that was going to fill in all the gaps in the way that I understood the body. Because Western medicine has all this beautiful science and all this knowledge that you can get. And, it was good. But the Chinese medicine made sense to my soul. It made sense in my heart. And so I left my residency at the end of my second year, and I went to work in the emergency room as sort of until I figure out what else I'm going to do. And then I went to acupuncture school. And so that's kind of how I got to where I am today.
What an amazing, heartfelt story. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. And, you mentioned, and that was sort of the theme of our discussion today, was really about how to heal even when you're ready to give up. And you said, you weren't willing to do that. This is something that you learned from a really early point in your life. And I think that I want to go there right now because sometimes when you're in crisis, whether it's, the culmination of life storms, whether it's career or personal life or parenting or sick parents or all of it happening at once, it can very much feel like, I can't take one more thing, or I can't do this. Or if you've got your own personal, real chronic health struggles or emotional struggles and you just can't see the light, I think it's very real for people to want to feel like they want to give up sometimes and just give up on trying, or they've knocked on so many doors, or they've taken so many pills, or they've tried so many things. Yeah. And what you're here to share is that no, you can heal even if you're ready. So let's dive into that.
Okay. It's my passion. So
all right. Okay. So I guess, what do you say to people? I mean, what's the typical person that comes to you now, and how do you start the process for them? What is the healing process when you are ready to give up?
Yeah. Well, hopefully, a lot of people come to me and say this, that I am their last hope. Okay, if I can't do it with you, I don't know where to go, because they've been to many other places. And, so of course, the first thing I say is there's hope. There's always hope. As long as you're alive, as long as you have living cells, as long as there's something breathing inside of you, there's hope. And so it's a matter of, 1, beginning to believe that there's hope, and 2, starting to have faith in your own ability to heal. Mm-hmm. Second, it's the way I look at it is that it's a hero's journey. Everybody has some kind of hero's journey that they have to go through in their life. It's a part of how we grow spiritually. It's like it may be physical, it may be a life challenge. Like for me, I've had many hero's journeys, because getting to medical school was one. Surviving my childhood was another. So there and.
Can we just pause there for a second? Because I know I was at a writing workshop and we dove into the whole concept of the hero's journey, but I'm not sure if everyone is going to be familiar with the sort of phases of that. Can you touch on those for listeners right now who, might just be thinking, what's a hero's journey? I know I would have been one of those people a few years ago. So,
well, really, the way I look at it is that you're given a challenge. So the first thing is that there's some kind of challenge. And so in the hero's journey is really most of the movies that we love have some kind of hero's journeys. One of my favorite is The Matrix.
Yes.
But there's a lot of hero,
Wars,
I love Star Wars. They go
Hobbit.
on and on and on. They're the hottest movies, right? The Hobbit was a great one. But you're given a challenge.
Yeah.
And then the challenge always looks insurmountable. Or maybe it looks not so completely insurmountable at the beginning. It looks like, oh, okay, I can do that. And then you start on the journey and you gather your team. So this fits very well with healthcare, right? Or with a health challenge. Is like the challenge happens, some kind of health issue. A lot of times the people who come to me have symptoms that nobody understands.
Okay.
Especially in Western medicine, if they've gone to conventional doctors, they may have a ton of tests and the tests look normal. I just saw someone yesterday who'd seen 17 doctors. She's 18 years old and she's been sick since she was 13. And nobody has any answers. And everybody's telling her, yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with you enough, And so she the first
feels crazy. She probably feels crazy.
She knows there's something wrong because she can't do anything. She's only 18. So there's the challenge. There's the physical challenge, and then there's the gathering your team. So the Hobbit, let's say, he was told he had to go get this ring, right? Mm-hmm. Or I can't remember what he was supposed to do.
Yeah,
but he had to do something, and then so he got these guys together, right? And then they all go together on this mission, and then there's things that happen on the way. So there may be big stumbling blocks and fall down points and moments where it's difficult, and those moments are the test.
Yeah,
the test of your perseverance, the test of your strength, and the test of your your willingness to go. I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep going. And sometimes, especially with a health challenge, when your heart is broken and your mood is down and your energy is down, that's the hardest thing to do.
I agree. I've been there, right? I think so many people could be nodding their head and in agreement right now, or they're in that place and they're like, oh my God, that's exactly the place I'm in.
Yeah.
So how do you've got these tests, how do you find the strength or fortitude in yourself to keep going? That's the hope?
You have hope.
Yeah.
You have this. So the way I see it is that like those moments are like stretching. Like when you're in yoga and you have to stretch into a position that doesn't really feel good, and you're like like I was in yoga yesterday and I was shaking. Like with some of those positions, you're shaking.
Oh yeah, they're hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the thing that's cool about this is I think sometimes we often don't understand the process of change or what comes when we choose to create change in our life. And so often, I sometimes call it fear, having fear, being tested, being forced to face something you're not ready to face. And so often the desire is to shut down or to believe we can't do it. And really the freedom or the healing or the next thing that you want is like right through that, but you don't know. Because you're like, well, if I'm supposed to get this should be easier, can often be a belief that people are operating from. And so I like to share or shed light on the fact that no, just because you want it does not mean that it might be, that it will be an easy journey.
Right. And it almost never is.
Yeah.
It almost never is. Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So in those moments, what I provide at those moments is that I say, I'm here. I am with you. I am not giving up. Mm-hmm. Stay in touch with me. Stay connected to me. Let me help you. And sometimes I don't know the answers, but I know a few things. I know how to keep a person balanced. I know how to get a person into balance. And in balance is where you get to heal.
What does that mean? Like, what is that? So like from either a physiological perspective or emotional perspective, because I think that word gets thrown a lot, especially for like, moms or busy career women. Like,
right.
Oh, I need to balance my life. And you'll hear some people say, well, that's not possible. That's a myth. Or you'll hear, oh, it's elusive. You can never have it all. Balance is impossible. So what does it mean from a healing or a health perspective to be in balance?
Well, for me, it's some very specific things.
Okay.
So it's very physical. So there's certain things that I do. One is that on I believe that there's physical, emotional, spiritual, like those all are connected.
Yeah.
But that if you get your physical body physically balanced, that other things fall into place and become easier. So I start with that. And I mean, I've been a doctor for 30 years now. So it's where I started, right? Is to find physical balance and how to help people heal physically. So using Chinese and Western medicine the way that I have for so long, I take it sort of as a triangle, and it's your hormones, your nervous system, and your immune system form a triangle. They cannot exist without each other, and your body can't function without any one of those things. And when a person starts to fall apart, those things fall apart. And the digestion's in the middle because the digestion is affected by all of them, is connected to all of them. So what I do with people who are having a difficult problem, even if I don't know what the problem is, I approach it from this, like, how do I get these things balanced? So we work with food, we work with supplements, we work with getting your hormones, your immune system, and your nervous system all balanced. And then from that place, as those things get into balance, then the body has no choice but to heal. And then, of course, I work with people using acupuncture, and I use the acupuncture to help remove the emotional traumas, to remove the things that keeping them that are in their way. And so sometimes things happen that I don't understand myself, like I remember years ago, I had this doctor who came to see me. He was a pain specialist, and his whole life was falling apart. His business was having problems. He was having problems in his marriage. He was having problems everywhere. He didn't quite know how to organize anything. And he was having some physical challenges. So he came for acupuncture, and I did like 5 treatments. And after the 5th treatment, he came to me and, I did some other stuff to help him get more physically balanced. But then he came back to me and he said, some miracles had happened in his office. And so suddenly his business started working again. And he'd had a conversation with his wife. And, he didn't credit me with that. He didn't say, oh, you helped me with this. But I felt like that me helping heal his body helped get his emotions in balance, which helped him be able to function so that all those other things could happen.
Oh, I mean, 100%. I was sharing on an earlier episode about, sometimes it's only when life throws you such big challenges that you become more open to the alternative therapies that are out there for you. Because I went to school at University of Alberta. I did my master's at University of Victoria, very Western influenced in my physiology degrees. Yeah. And I'd heard about acupuncture, but, I used it. So I sort of thought of it more as a way you heal from like a sports injury, not this like sort of deeper emotional chi coursing through me and that there could be blocks somewhere. I had no idea until I had a life storm happen. And a girlfriend of mine who happened to be married to an acupuncturist said, you should really see him. And I went, and I can't even explain. Like I said, I try to describe my experience, and I say, well, I just go into the table and I cry. Like I'm not even sure what needles or what meridians are being accessed, but I just simply cry, and he lets me. He does, he doesn't worry. He just asks me a few questions and I cry more. And I had no idea how much emotional energy I had trapped in my body because I was using my intellect and my busyness and my like type A-ness to kind of supersede over that. Do you see that often as something that, as a way of coping, for instance?
Of course. Yeah. I'm one of those.
Yeah.
I mean, I coped with my whole life being busy and trying to do things in that way. So yes, of course. That's a few years ago, I split up with my husband about 9 years ago, and I was heartbroken, but I didn't let myself feel the heartbreak. I just kept going and going and going and going. And in that year, which is very interesting, I banged my car into something about 6 times. And I blamed the car because it had no backup camera, and it was high, sort of, the windows were small. So I thought, I can't see when I back up, because I kept backing up into things.
Interesting.
But when you think about it, interestingly, I didn't want to see. I didn't want to feel what was happening. So I just kept backing up into things until I finally was like, okay, I can't keep functioning like this.
Yeah.
So definitely, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, so talk about, you mentioned a few key words, and that's the power of never giving up. And I guess I'm thinking about my own life and the lives of my clients. I do get to hear very intimate stories, as I imagine you do too.
Mm-hmm.
And how we tap in, like I often say that the best change we can make in our life is by learning to change what's going on up here in our thought system, the belief system that we hold, as opposed to all of these external symptoms that we're trying to manage and, treat, so to speak, without really looking at the root cause of where some of this dis-ease is coming from. How do you work with your clients? And for anybody listening who, is trying to cultivate that hope or that faith, like what do they do if they're at if they're in a real life rut? Because I've been there, and the world can seem bleak sometimes.
Sure can. Yes, I've been there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Several things that you have to have your support, and so many people don't really have enough support. And even if that support is a cat or a dog, if that's all that you have, that those animals, they love you unconditionally. Your children, they love you when they're young, they love you unconditionally, then they grow up. So,
and then they're like, well, you messed me up as a child. I think I just take it for granted that all children need to be in therapy at some point in their lives, right? Well-intentioned parents will still make mistakes.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about support for a second, though, because I found my own self in a place of feeling very isolated at one point in my life. No family in town, alone with little children, had moved to a new community. And I did not know how, and it seems so silly, but I did not know how. Like, I could recognize I didn't have support, but I didn't know how to create it. And I was also at a place where it felt like that would take a lot of energy, right? To go on a coffee date with a new friend or to go to a community group of some sort, when I kind of felt like crap inside, like when you're for me anyways, when I've been in a low place, it's not really when I want to put myself out there. And because I'm worried about judgment. I'm worried about people, what they're going to think about me. So how do you push through that?
Well, maybe you don't. But a lot of people, that's why a lot of people end up with me, is they are looking for somebody to heal them, right? And so the first support people you might find, especially if you're new someplace, is a healer.
Yes.
A massage person, acupuncturist, a doctor, a counselor, a coach, something like that. And a lot of people, that's how we start. Because you go to somebody who helps you, right? And they become a support person for you. And because they're, marketing themselves, they're available to be found.
Yeah.
And I think that's in every community. So
I did that, exactly that. I was a coach, I was a trainer, and I went and hired people to help me. And
of course, yeah.
I have also met other people who sometimes don't even have the self-worth to believe that it's okay to pay for that support sometimes. That it's okay to even bring a babysitter in to look after your kids so you can step out for an hour and regain some sanity sometimes. There can be a block to that.
Yeah. And now what we have is the internet. And so there's people like you on the internet providing this sort of thing. And so a lot of people who've been coming to me are watching summits and learning from these sorts of online events that are not at no cost.
Yeah.
And that can become a source of support, so there's all kinds of ways of getting support, and more now than there were before.
You know what I think's nice about things like this, Shiroko, is that if you hear somebody share their story, the vulnerability in that, and if it's similar to what you're going through, it makes you feel like you're not so freaking crazy, that you're not the only one. And to hear, like for me to, listen to you, and I've got already some ideas or assumptions, and to hear you that you've been in these dark places, I'm like, oh my God, like everybody has their stuff. It's just, we'll all experience it and go through our journey on a different thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, now I'm going to love to talk about this, because you talk about the power of, I know what's near and dear to your heart is the power of love in healing. And I have a feeling that's going to be not just love from relationships, but like self-love. You share. What is that? Why is love? I think we all know it's important. I think we underestimate how important love is.
Yeah, it might make me cry, so pardon me if I get emotional. You talk about love, you shouldn't be crying, but
it's a
when I split up with my husband, that was probably the biggest transformation of my life, and I've had many, as I've already told you. It broke my heart. He was that person for me, and I had this belief that you had a soulmate and that you had to be with one person. That's how I was raised. That was what I thought would make me whole. And so when it ended, it was devastating.
Yeah.
What happened was that even early in the process, I began to realize that I was a healer and that, that I had dedicated my life to being a healer. And so that this was a necessary lesson for me, that I had to learn how to not be focused on just one person, because when you're in love with one person, then all your focus is on them. And it may be that you do other things and you live your life, but your whole love focus is on that person. And that's what was true for me. Mm-hmm. And even early, I realized that couldn't be how I was. I had to be bigger. I had to open my heart more. And it was a journey. It was like going through the devastation, losing my faith, losing my belief in everything that was true for me. Not sure that I was a healer anymore. Not, like so many things happened.
Yeah. Well, you question, I think when you go through these major soul storms, you start to question everything that you think to be true and what you've believed about yourself.
Yes.
It can be very disconcerting. It's like, who am I? Like, do I know who I am anymore?
Yeah.
And so that's past. So then what happened? So you go through this incredibly transformative...
Well, I have some beautiful friends. I have some very beautiful friends. And they were there. And they put up with me, which wasn't always easy. But the love that they had finally got me to go, wait a minute, they're loving me, but I have to love. Mm-hmm. I have to find that inside of me. And then it was because I work with people every day, I was constantly challenged.
Yeah.
And my business would, people would respond to me, when I was loving, it was great. And if I wasn't loving, it was clear that I wasn't getting the results that were helping people. And so I just started to actually work at it. I was like, okay, I am love. I am committed to being a loving human being. This is my mission on earth. I am committed to doing this in a loving, amazing way. And so I just kept bringing love forth. And what happened is, like, every time I felt like shrinking, every time I felt like giving up, this voice inside me said, no, you're a loving human being. So make it bigger, make it bigger. And so every time I'd feel this contraction, I'd force myself to open up more instead of contracting more.
That is so beautiful. I love that, because whenever I'm in a hard spot or talking to clients, I'm like, there's kind of polarities. There's love and light, or there's fear and darkness. And you're going to be choosing to go towards one of them. One is tight and constricted and hard and painful and lonely. And the other one is open and expansive and airy and I have to keep my own self on track sometimes. Which way do you want to go, Jen? Like, I ask myself, love and light, fear and darkness. And I'm like, oh, right, that way. Got to go that way. I'm heading down the wrong direction. And sometimes
it's a conversation every 10 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Well,
Did you ever see Kung Fu Panda? Did you ever see that?
No, yeah, I've got kids. Yeah.
Yeah, so the red panda that was the Sifu, what did he say? Peace. I am peaceful. It's peace, inner peace. Sometimes it's like that. It's not that, like, I'm not sure I care as much about inner peace as I care about love, but love is bringing me inner peace. So
yeah. Well, and I think that's so, you often in our space, right, in the healing or the energetic space or the coaching space, it's so often you can look to all these people and think, oh my God, they are gurus. They've got this shit dialed. And, I find it very humanizing for me, or very like, it's humbling when I'm like, they don't. They're working at it just as much as I am. And so for people listening right now, just remember that it's very easy to sort of look at somebody and imagine their highlight reel, and to be aware that inner transformation, or tapping into these concepts of hope and unconditional love for self and being loving, it can be daily work sometimes, especially when you're coping with emotional storms in life.
Yes.
So how do you teach your clients to do that? Like, you've got the skill set where you went through that journey, but now I know that you also impact your patients or your clients this way with the message around love and how important it is for healing. How do you do that?
Well, first of all, I love them. And I put my heart and soul into them getting well. And I think that is because that's what helped me, that people loved me and put their heart and soul into me, you know? And so I put my heart and soul into my patients, and I'm like, I'm here for you. Yeah. And that means I answer phone calls, I answer emails, I give them love, you know, and caring. And I think that's not that often in medical practice that people experience that with their doctor.
Oh, yeah, I would highly agree with you on that. You know, it's not the typical experience. You're right.
Yeah. And even so having the acupuncture is a way of directly transmitting love, you know, so I put needles in people, and that is an actual experience, you know, and then I have conversations. So I have some people that are across the world, so they can't have acupuncture, but I like look at them with my eyes and I'm like, come on, I'm here for you. Yeah. So that helps them know that somebody cares. And then that becomes a seed. And then as we get to work together more and we build more and they start to feel physically better, because again, you need that physical substrate in order to be able to start to build something inside of yourself. And then that begins to build up more and more energy, and then that love can begin to grow inside of them. So it's kind of like lighting a candle, you know, you light a little flame, and then that grows. So.
Well, and I think what I want to just reiterate a little bit and just sort of highlight in what you're saying is, for anybody who's tuning into this right now, it's like you can also be this person or become this person for other people in your life, right? By simply just choosing to care, choosing to connect, choosing to be there for somebody. You know, for me, I was sharing with you, like, there's been lots of hard things, and it's felt like it's been forever, like years worth. And I feel like my friends are tired of me, to be honest. Like, how are things going, Jen? Oh, well, you know, it's like, I do search for the good, and there's some very real hard stuff too. And it's to remind yourself that, you know, no matter where you're at, your friends will, like, they can love and support you, and that you can be that loving, supportive friend for other people. And also look to other resources to get more support if you know that you need it, and to give yourself permission to do it. I think that's another one is, you know, somehow we think that we're weak or that we need to be so strong all the time. Like, I got this, right? Like, I've got this, but plates are crashing everywhere and we don't got it. And that it's okay. And, you know, it's okay to reach out and get the help that you need.
Absolutely.
Is that an ego thing, do you think? Like, why do we feel such resistance towards asking for help or even admitting that we need it?
Well, I mean, who knows? But yeah, ultimately it boils down to ego. And even, like, I've had some ego moments of realizing that when I think that I can do it all on my own, that's an ego thing. Or when I, quote unquote, I don't want to bother somebody, you know, like, how many times, all my women patients are like this, is like, how many times have you said, oh, I don't want to bother you? Yeah. As if you're, and that thing, you feel like you're being considerate, but you're actually not, because you're not taking care of yourself. So you're not being considerate to yourself.
I have clients who hire me. They've hired me to help them. Like, well, I just didn't want to bug you. I'm like, yeah, you hired me. Like, a 5-minute conversation could have just changed, you know, a ton of stuff that you let happen because you were worried about bothering me. So yeah, it's a really good point. So, you know, as if anybody who has been down the Western medical path and is now, you know, in light of this conversation or maybe some other messages that are coming in around Chinese medicine, or where does somebody start to get more information? How can they look? Because that was what happened for me. I read a book called, oh my gosh, you're gonna probably know it, but this Between Heaven and Earth.
I love that book. That's the other Chinese medicine book. Yeah. That
was the first one I read. And it was just like, because I was like, how does somebody look at my tongue and feel my pulse and know anything? And I think they say, well, how does a doctor use a stethoscope and listen to your heart rate and know anything? It's just a different tool. And they've been trained to use these different tools. And that made sense to me. I was like, oh, well, that's logical. And so for anybody who wants to start to get maybe just they're more open to looking at these paths or alternative or blended pathways for healing, what would you suggest?
Well, there's lots of websites. If you have friends, that's your best bet, is to talk to your friends and say, who's helping you? Who's doing stuff for you? Especially if you relate to someone a lot, then going to the people that your friends relate to will help you. And I always think that if you're going to talk to a practitioner, I always give a 15-minute free consultation because I feel like this connection. So my business is called Heart to Heart Medical Center.
Awesome.
And it's because of my heart to your heart. So that connection is so important. So anybody that you want to work with, that they let you talk to them for a few minutes before you go to have an appointment with them, so that you have that connection. Now, some people know they have the connection, just watching a video or just looking at a person's website. So whatever it takes is like how you get there. Doesn't matter, but find someone that you have a connection with who has skills and knowledge.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have that, so I'm a member of several organizations. I'm on the Institute of Functional Medicine, and they have a website, and you can search for practitioners on that site. And then there's the American Academy of Medical Acupuncture. And that's really only MDs who do acupuncture, and there are thousands of other kinds of acupuncturists. So then there's acupuncture schools in almost every community. And you can, if you're on a budget, you can go to the acupuncture school and have acupuncture at a really low cost.
Great ideas. Yeah, super great ideas.
So these are all possibilities. And then, my personal favorite is talking to your friends.
Well, and yeah, me too. That's how I learned, right? That was the turning point for me. I trusted her. She suggested him. I was like, okay. And over the last 15 years, I'm sure he's brought me back from the brink of breakdown, numerous times, like just all sorts of times. And it's been life-changing for me. Now, you mentioned so how do people, so let's say somebody's watching this or listening to this and they do feel that connection. How can people learn more about you and find you? Can you share that with our listeners? And we'll also have it in the show notes down below too, if you're worried about missing out.
So my website is hearttoheartmedicalcenter.com, which is pretty easy to remember.
And you do see patients, like this. Yeah, that's really cool.
Skype, yes.
Yeah.
So everything's on my website. So
awesome. hearttoheartmedicalcenter.com. I know you've got a book coming out in the new year. Yes. So that will be, it's called 7 Keys to Accelerated Healing. So I think we'll be on the lookout for that. I know I'll be on the lookout for that, and we'll put a link up here when we get one. And I guess, for final words, I feel like this interview will provide hope, right? Provides hope to people who are in a place where, they're wondering if they're going to get through a hard spot. They're in that goo phase of life where the lessons, they've been asked to take a journey and they're either tired of the journey. Hopefully this will inspire them to just, to keep going. And any final sort of advice or pieces of wisdom you can offer?
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up and tap into that love, right? Tap into the love. And I think when we are able to do that, and by being loving, it can just be giving yourself permission to go to bed earlier than you normally do, not being such a, slowing down sometimes, breathing outside. It doesn't have to be these sometimes I think we Hollywood eyes love a little bit, and it's not necessarily like that.
It's not like that at all, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, because there's layers of love, of course. And so there is that falling in love with one person, and it is a beautiful thing, to have that. But there's also the love in your life, and then there's the love of the divine. So there's all these layers of having love, and they're all available, and they're all vitally important. So
Well, I think that's a great place to end this.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of Energy to Thrive. We have just had the pleasure of listening to Dr. Shiroko Sokitch speak with us on how to heal even when you're ready to give up. And, one of the things I would totally appreciate is if you like this, please share it. I do believe this is a message that more women in particular need to hear and be reminded of. Also, feel free to pop back over to iTunes and give this podcast a little love. It does make a difference. And I want to keep bringing amazing experts to you. So again, thank you so much for being with me today and for letting me dig in and ask you, to mine you for some wisdom around what you're so good at doing.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you. You're wonderful.
Oh,
Thanks.
Good. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you again soon. Bye for now.